Hello, it's Randi Rhodes. Here's a clip from our show, and go to randyrhodes.com for the whole thing and a podcast. Buy a stinking podcast.
Mary had a little man.
The fault. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream. Change has come to America.
Believe me. Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show. Turn up your mind.
What Denzel is saying, I understand completely. And if you saw this video yesterday, this video became public yesterday. It's just heartbreaking what goes on in our streets. You know, that we just sit there and pretend that everything is just okay, and it's not okay. There are, families that have to have the talk with their young sons. People are not safe to move about this country, even if they're law-abiding, even if they're unarmed. I mean, it's just so interesting. You got people showing up at protests with multiple weapons. People showing up at Walmart with multiple weapons, and they're allowed to move freely about the country. Here, what you're going to see is a young black man who this is kind of what Denzel's talking about. This is a young black man who is unarmed, okay? And the police stop him, and you won't believe the enormous number of police officers that are tasked with arresting this young man who is unarmed and on his knees, and that a woman who had also lost her fiancé to a police shooting happened to be on the scene. Her name is Jay. She happened to be on the scene, and she is coaching this young man and telling him how to stay still and telling him how to avoid being killed by this enormous show of firepower used against him while he's on his knees and unarmed. This is heartbreaking.
Money for what I did. I pay money for what I did. Bring your hands up now.
We are on the corner of Prairie and El Segundo, and they have their guns drawn on this young black man right here. Why are your guns pulled on this young man?
I ain't got no weapons.
He has no weapons on him. We live right now. We are so live. What's your name?
They attacked me.
What's
at the gas station, they attacked me.
What's your name? What's your name?
Make sure you add that.
What's your
My name is William.
last name, William?
What you loading for? I ain't doing shit. I have no weapons. I'm gonna kill an unarmed black man.
Are you gonna shoot him? Are you gonna shoot him?
What?
Okay, relax, baby. Relax, because they will shoot you. They killed my boyfriend in 2015. Yes, he was killed by the police. You're gonna shoot me too, right? For filming, right?
Look at her
live.
pointing
Look
that
at
weapon.
Big ass gun she got on this man with no weapon. Is all that really necessary, ma'am? I'm sorry. I just need to know. Is all the guns drawn on him necessary? Excuse me, Mr. Officer. My name is Sky Hosey. My boyfriend name was Leroy Browning, and he was killed December 15th at a Taco Bell. This is crazy to me. Look, my car is right there. I was getting gas. I don't understand why y'all got guns drawn on him right now. Are y'all about to kill this man? Like, look at these big ass guns they got on this man right now.
Oh.
Look at this baby. Look at this baby.
Stand up and walk slowly to the sound of my voice. Do it now.
Can y'all just put your guns away and somebody get them?
Sound of my voice.
My name is William, not suspect.
Don't move. Don't move. Please don't move. Can somebody just come get him? Can somebody put your guns down and get him, please? Don't resist him, okay?
She saved his life. I don't know how she stayed so composed, but she finally broke down at the end. I mean, the amount of firepower aimed at this man, who was a young man, on his knees with his hands behind his head and his hands obviously, at another point are wide open to show that there's no weapon at all. He has no weapon upon him. I don't know why they pulled him over. I don't know why he was on his knees. That is where the telephone, the recording started on her phone. And obviously, she had been at a Taco Bell with her boyfriend, whose name she gives, who was killed by police doing nothing at a Taco Bell. And so she is telling this young man, don't move, and begging the police to put their guns away and just go get him, just go arrest him if that's what they had in mind. Why are all these guns pulled on him? Why is this man on his knees with his hands behind his neck in a very submissive position? And then because she's filming and giving this young man advice, don't move, can you please just put the guns down and go get him? If you want, go get him. Just go get him. Don't resist, please. They killed my boyfriend. Why is that America? Why does it look that way? What is the deal with this? And we all know that if he had been shot and it was captured on the video, we all would have seen it. It would have been on the TV for about a day. The parents would have been interviewed. The lawyer would have shown up with the parents. The police officer would have been suspended with pay. And then 4 years later, either the police officer would be back on the force or he would be given a pass, and the family would then have to go to a civil court to try and hold this person or these people who shot their son, who was unarmed, on his knees, accountable, and perhaps money damages would be awarded after 10 years of fighting for justice. Why is that okay? Why is that okay with anybody in this country? And you have a president who stands on a stage with law enforcement and says, I see when you put somebody in the car, you protect their head. I don't like that you protect their head. I want you to be rougher with them. Now they, in the them sentence, is that kid. And that kid is guilty of nothing at all. Because he hasn't been charged with anything. He hasn't been arraigned. He hasn't, had a trial or entered into a plea agreement. Nothing has happened that this kid should give his life for. And nothing has happened at all when somebody is arrested for a taillight being out or for going through a red light, which, I'm not for it. You haven't been adjudicated guilty of anything. So why do we have a president that advocates to treat the innocent person who's been convicted of no crime more rough than that? You see, and that's why, Denzel, I have to say to you in the most respectful way, because I get what you face every day. I don't face it myself. I totally understand that I'm pasty white and there's a privilege that travels around this country with me that you don't have. I totally know it. I get it. I feel it. I understand it. And I will fight to my dying day to make everyone understand it as best as I can. But if you don't vote, especially for this crop of candidates who haven't even had we haven't had a result of a primary yet, and clearly there are candidates who are for criminal justice reform. Clearly there are candidates who understand what is wrong with policing in America. Clearly on the Democratic side, there are candidates that get it, that know it, that understand it, that are willing to change it. And if you don't get the one who is the top proponent of criminal justice reform. Although I will say this, Joe Biden, I mean, you know the crime bill, and you know the story of the crime bill, and you know that Hillary Clinton had to answer for her vote on the crime bill, and Joe Biden will as well. And I get that. I understand that. But also know that in that crime bill was the Violence Against Women Act, which is currently expired in this country. And Mitch McConnell will not take it up in the Senate to renew it. And also there was a ban on assault weapons in that crime bill in 1994. And the only way they got it passed was to put a sunset provision in it, so it only lasted 10 years. And here we are back with assault weapons and mass shootings all over again. But there is one party that actually made the compromise. The 3 strikes, you're out, which is what the Republicans wanted, and the crack cocaine disparity over the powder cocaine disparity. But in exchange, they got an assault weapons ban and the Violence Against Women Act, which, you know, by the way, those 2 laws have expired. Clearly, not voting is not an option. And I'm glad you called. I'm glad we had the conversation early, because right now there are 23 candidates. Choose. Go to RandiRhodes.com for the whole thing and a podcast. Buy a stinking podcast.